The Center for the Improvement of Human Functioning International presents this luncheon lecture. Today's topic, In the Dumps, Beat Depression and Improve Mental Health. Your presenter, Rebecca Kirby, MD, MSRD.
Howdy, everybody. There we go. Welcome on this nice spring day in Kansas where there's lots of wind blowing. That would make it a pretty typical Kansas day, wouldn't it? In lieu of the fact that we might not have any greenery, I made the background green because unless we get some rain, it's going to... Alrighty. Now I'll just wait for that little cursor thing to disappear. We're going to talk about depression today and all those things that help us feel better. Okay, well, first of all, let's start out with some definitions so we're all talking about the same thing. What is depression? It's a disturbance in your normal daily activities. There may be feelings of hopelessness or guilt. And in case you thought depression wasn't a very widespread phenomenon, it turns out there's more work days that are lost due to depression than to high blood pressure and heart disease combined. And they say that there's like 20 million Americans, we're talking about adults over the age of 18, that have some sort of mood disorder over a given year. And what does depression do? Well, it can affect your appetite. Either you can have too much appetite or too little appetite. The same thing with sleep. It affects your sleep. You can have too much or too little. Energy is affected, concentration, and sex drive, which is the libido. And you have a loss in interest in your usual activities. And then physically, other things may be going on, like headaches, gut disturbances, backaches, other kinds of pain. Now, just in case you thought you were going to get to sit there today, we're going to tickle those little brain cells. You all need to get out your number 2 pencils and put your notebooks under the desk. No, I'm just kidding. Did anybody have an increase in heart rate when that happened? Okay, we're going to answer questions along the way. Is depression ever appropriate? What do you think? Yes. Yeah, sure is. Grieving. Stresses related to trauma or a sudden loss. Those are things where you naturally have depression. Okay. Women are diagnosed more often than men. That doesn't mean that they have it more often, they're just diagnosed more often. But if you look at other factors, there's no relationship to ethnicity, education, income, or marital status, whether people are depressed or not. This seems to be sort of a family characteristic. Okay, so under the influence, let's think about question number 2. It is estimated that how many million Americans are on a psychoactive medication that alters mood, thoughts, or feelings? Let's kind of take a wild guess there.
What question are you?
We're on question number 2. Okay.
Yes, Linda.
10 million. 10 million Americans are on some kind of medication that may alter moods, thoughts, or feelings. That means things, besides antidepressants, it means tranquilizers, mood modifiers, and even sleep medications. And of those, about a quarter of the prescriptions, legal drugs that are sold, are these psychoactive medications. And you may be familiar with the fact that illegal use of a lot of these psychoactive medications is a bigger business than some of those other illegal drugs like cocaine and heroin. The abuse of prescription drugs is way over those. All right, now we're on question 3. True or false? Drugs modify the chemical environment of the brain cells and often alleviate symptoms, but do not get to the root of the trouble. Yeah, and really, the bottom line is in the title there. Body chemistry creates brain chemistry. You know, the two are connected. And here's a very apropos quote from Linus Pauling saying, "The functioning of the brain is affected by the molecular concentration of many substances that are normally present in the brain." And he coined the term orthomolecular, which was the beginning of something called orthomolecular psychiatry, where the doctors were looking at the right molecule for the right person in the right amount to help with their body and brain chemistry. So, why is the brain chemistry important? Well, let's think about it. Question number 4. What organ in the body is the biggest user of nutrients? The liver, the brain, the pancreas, or the heart?
Brain.
Yes. Okay. This group has no grass growing under their feet. Okay. Now, our founder had a very famous quote, which is question number 5. The center's founder, Dr. Hugh D. Riordan, used to say, "Find out what the brain needs and what? Feed it." He was one of those orthomolecular psychiatrists looking for the right things for each individual. Okay, and you might think, well, of course, we eat a good diet, we'll get those nutrients to feed our brain. Well, y'all are probably aware most Americans are not eating a good diet, and if you just kind of take a quick review there, this is the percentage of Americans who are not getting the recommended dietary allowance of just a few nutrients that I picked out here that they keep pretty close tabs on, the government does. Vitamin A, C, E, B12, B6, magnesium, and zinc were pretty much behind the mark there. And you'll notice that women are more deficient than men. Okay, so those are things that we're not getting enough of in our diet. Question 6. A deficient amount of which of these symptoms may cause symptoms of depression? So let's kind of think about all those things that may be important for that brain environment. What about vitamin C? What do you think? Yes. Vitamin D. I just talked about that last month, so yes. And vitamin K. Yeah, Dr. Watt just talked about that last week. What about those fish oils, the fatty acids? Absolutely. And the methylators, B12, B6, and folate. Yes. Here's another B vitamin. What about vitamin B3, niacin? Yes. Now, niacin is one of those that you may have learned in one of your health classes that a deficiency disease of niacin is called pellagra. And what you get with pellagra is dementia, depression, and dermatitis. So the deficiency state of many vitamins is recognized that depression is a component. And you don't hear a lot of talk about B1, thiamine, but what about B1? Yep. Okay. All of the above. All right. More brain nourishment. There's some other things. What about for the brain to properly function? Vitamin A, is that important? It's good for skin, good for the immune system. Think it's good for the brain? Yes. What about coenzyme Q10?
I don't know what that is.
Coenzyme Q10 is an energy molecule. And without it, energy does not go forward very well in the muscles as well as the brain, because the brain requires at least a quarter of the energy that the body needs. Okay, amino acids. There's a couple of them that are particularly important, tryptophan and tyrosine. Do you think they're important? Yep, right. And then some minerals, magnesium, selenium, zinc. Think that's a yes? Absolutely. Okay, is this a trick question or not? Cholesterol. Ah, okay. We have a smart group here. Okay, now, always throw in studies because those scientists are busy documenting what's going on in nutrition. They have been for decades and decades. And one of the things that a lot of scientists are looking at is mental functioning and nutrient status. So what they did is they took a group of people and they looked at their nutritional status and how well they were thinking. That's called cognitive functioning. And these were healthy people. They weren't taking any medications. And those who did most poorly with abstract thinking and memory, lo and behold, had low levels of vitamin B2, that's riboflavin, good old vitamin C, and vitamin B12. Okay, so let's continue to contemplate other nourishing nutrients. Vitamin blank is necessary to make serotonin. That's a very important neurotransmitter. A deficiency of this vitamin causes weakness, irritability, and insomnia. Blood levels are usually lower in women and lowered even more on birth control pills. Alcohol destroys it and helps you excrete it. The RDA of this B vitamin may not be adequate, and 64% of the women don't even get the RDA. And the nickname, or its real name, is pyridoxal 5-phosphate. Which vitamin are we talking about? Yes, vitamin B6. Now, I want to point out this little blurb down here about the RDA of this vitamin may not be adequate. There was a study, and lo and behold, even though some level people were getting the RDA of this B6 in their diet, they didn't get good levels in their blood. Now, what do we know that's a phenomenon of? Biochemical individuality, because we're just not all alike. You know, some people may get enough with a certain amount, and then another person may need a lot more. And that phrase was coined by Dr. Roger J. Williams about how each person has a unique biochemistry resulting in diverse nutritional needs, so that one adequate level for one person will be different for someone else. I mean, there's no way that you can think that all the thousands of biochemical reactions that are going on in the body are just exactly the same for all of us. I mean, we don't even look alike, so how could all the stuff going on the inside that's much more complex be exactly the same? So that leads us to question number 9. If you took 100 people, you would find a blank fold difference in their need for any single nutrient. Well, you know, I thought you guys might say that. Y'all are actually very sharp, but it's a tenfold. So that just means that, like, my need for zinc might be tenfold more than yours, but your need for B1 might be tenfold more than mine. So it's all over the place. Okay, so let's talk about nutrients that we need to get in certain amounts to feed the brain. Number 10, this compound also decreases homocysteine by taking 400 to 800 micrograms daily. Cooking or processing food destroys about 50% of this vitamin. In depressed patients, low levels of this vitamin make them 6 times more likely to not respond to antidepressant therapy. And here's a big hint here. A dark green leafy vegetable a day keeps the doctor away. Folic acid. Folic acid, this is the easy part to remember. Folic acid is named after foliage. Hence, the dark green leafy vegetable a day keeps the doctor away. Yeah. There is even a prescription now of a form of folate to help with depression. It's a special kind of methylfolate that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So vitamins are getting some acknowledgement in how helpful they are in depression. Okay, now we just talked about how folate is helpful in breaking down homocysteine. Well, why is that important? Well, homocysteine is not good for us. If we have levels, high levels, it's a risk factor for dementia as well as heart disease. And so question 11 brings us to this vitamin decreases homocysteine also. A mild deficiency may cause memory loss and a reduction in reasoning skills. A decreased amount is common in the elderly, these are your clues, vegans, and those who cannot absorb this compound due to decreased stomach acid. I'll give you a hint, it's a B vitamin. Yep, B12. Okay, so the hints were you don't absorb this vitamin well if you don't have good stomach acid. And we have less stomach acid as we get older, and the number one prescription, I believe, still in the United States is acid-lowering drugs. And then vegans, who are the strict vegetarians who don't do any animal products, B12's only source is animal products, so they have to watch out for B12 deficiencies. But part of the nutritional teamwork approach is all these nutrients need to be together, and you just saw that both folate and B12 are important to lower your homocysteine. Okay, well, like I said, all the team needs to be there, including all the B vitamins. They play well together. So that leads us to question 12. I'll give you some hints here because vitamins B blank and B blank are cofactors in the synthesis of some neurotransmitters. Serotonin, GABA, which is an inhibitory calming neurotransmitter, and melatonin, which helps with sleep. Anybody got a clue what these B's are? I've got, if you look ahead, magnesium. You have to have magnesium to use these two vitamins to make these neurotransmitters. Okay, thiamine is B1. Pyridoxine, that's B6. Y'all are all going to be biochemists by the end of this lecture. Now, it has been observed in areas where it's endemic, where they have a high rate of magnesium deficiency. They also have a high rate of depression. And treating with magnesium can help relieve depression as well as anxiety and helps with insomnia. Magnesium does many things, and it also helps relax the muscles. Okay, lest we leave out part of the nutrient profile, let's talk a little bit about minerals. This is the teaching concept of repeating things. So question 13, low what can cause depression and insomnia? Yes. Okay. Now let's talk about some tandem minerals here. Stress lowers this mineral and raises this one.
Zinc and calcium.
Zinc is lowered with stress, and if you aren't getting enough zinc, you're going to absorb too much copper. And high levels of copper are known to cause agitation. So that's one reason it's important to get your copper and zinc levels checked, because if you're way up on copper, you need more zinc. That will help the balance and decrease the agitation. Okay, 15. Blank is important in regulating blood sugar.
Oh, I should know this one.
Yeah, chromium. And we're going to talk a little bit about blood sugar, because what happens when you're depressed is you crave sugar, carbohydrates. So what does that do? That raises your blood sugar. Then what does that do? That lowers your blood sugar. Then you feel tired, cranky. You know, it may not be concentrating well. So that's why chromium is important as part of the nutritional team. Okay, Here's a trace mineral that maybe you haven't thought a lot about in respects to depression. A third of nursing home residents or older people in residential homes who had symptoms of depression were studied, and this was an English crowd, and they found depression was significantly associated with selenium levels, although the levels were not below the reference range. In other words, if you looked at their selenium level and the so-called normal level in the lab, it was okay. But obviously it wasn't okay. What they did is after 8 weeks of supplementation with selenium, their symptoms of depression improved. And just as an aside, wanted to point out that 67% also had low levels of vitamin C. Now, we're still in the British Isles. In Wales, there was another study where they put people on 100 micrograms of selenium for 5 weeks and both increased their mood and decreased their anxiety. Okay, now another hint. Oysters are a very good source of this nutrient. 68% of men and 83% of women do not get even the RDA of this nutrient. It's a mineral. Okay, low levels are seen in attention deficit disorder and anxiety. The brain has to use this mineral to produce GABA, the calming neurotransmitter. What do you think this mineral is? We may have already talked about it.
Calcium.
Yep, zinc's pretty important. So it appears again. And I know we sort of landlocked here, so nobody probably eats oysters every week, but they probably get their RDA very, very easily if they like the little hepatitis on the half shell. Okay. All right. Now, somebody took a look at what people were eating who had already had a diagnosis of mild to moderate depression. They completed a 3-day diet diary, and selenium showed up again. It was consistently below the RDA, but every one of them at least had one or more of a nutrient deficiency. So, what we're looking at is, one of the team is not there. It's like having one of your cylinders going out on your car. It's not going to run right. Another group looked at folks who had a 7-day diet diary, and this was an older group. They have something called the geriatric depression scale, and those who scored high on it, who were depressed, had low intakes of fat, fiber, vegetables, no surprise there, they weren't getting their dark green leafies, and low vitamin A, B2, B3, that's that niacin, and vitamin C. So let's talk a little bit about vitamin C. When you have a really severe deficiency of vitamin C, it's called scurvy. Now, scurvy was something that was one of the first diseases way back, like in the 1700s, to be found to be caused by a dietary deficiency. And it's assumed that scurvy no longer exists because they've got the RDA set at about 60 to 80 milligrams, which, it's not much. If you eat a reasonable amount of fruits and vegetables, supposedly that might happen. But, of course, we know that 10% of Americans don't eat any fruit every day. So, question 17. Studies on the vitamin C status of persons admitted to a psychiatric hospital showed that 32% had low levels associated with effects on immune response, that because vitamin C is very important for the immune system, helps your white blood cells, and they had behavioral changes, and there were some who actually had scurvy. And you like to ponder, I guess, 10%. Okay, well, what's the first sign of scurvy? Well, it's weakness and depression. So, shouldn't have been too surprised, should they have? Okay. Well, one of the things that happens, like the doctors and scientists thinking that scurvy's gone and people don't have vitamin C deficiencies, is guessing people's nutrient status and what is going on in their blood. Just doesn't work. There's a very famous nutrition researcher called Dr. Emanuel Shraskin, and he says doctors don't think anyone is low in vitamin C because they never what? Yeah, they never measure it. Now that's something we do here. For those of you guys who are co-learners, you probably all had your vitamin C levels measured and you know where you're at. Now what was interesting, since it's so poorly recognized, went into the literature, and not that long ago, we're talking about this century, in 2006, Mayo decided to look for some scurvy. And sure enough, they found it. They looked at their records, and what they did is they got descriptions of vitamin C deficiencies. Okay, so what are the symptoms besides weakness and depression? Well, bruising, arthralgias, that means joint pain. Edema, pedal edema, that means, swelling below your knee, fat ankles, that sort of thing. Vague symptoms, I consider them vague, of myalgias, that's muscle pain, and fatigue. So those are vitamin C deficiencies. And of course, while they were looking around, they also found out there were other nutrient deficiencies as well. And then somebody in 2007 thought it was so remarkable, they published a case of a patient with depression who had scurvy. So that's vitamin C. Well, what the heck is it doing? Regulation of nerve impulses. Question 19. The concentration of what vitamin is higher in the brain than in the blood by 10-fold and is exceeded only by the high concentrations in the adrenal glands? What vitamin were we just talking about? Yes, vitamin C. Well, you wouldn't think, gosh, the brain has lots of vitamin C. Yes, the brain has lots, or wants lots of vitamin C, we'll put it that way. And then there is a neurotransmitter called histamine. And when histamine levels go up in the blood, vitamin C levels go down. Vitamin C is a very potent antihistamine. And histamine, when you have high levels of histamine, they find low levels of serotonin and low levels of some of the other neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. Okay, so what else is vitamin C doing? Well, stress. Let's talk about stress, because stress and depression can go hand in hand, because what happens is stress is a mechanism to help us handle life. Back in the days when we needed this fight or flight response to get away from the saber-toothed tiger, now we're under kind of ongoing stress, and so very often this mechanism of taking care of stress in our bodies doesn't quiet down. They looked at 60 healthy young adults, and they put them, they did a good job because they put them on a lot of vitamin C. They didn't put them on the RDA. They put them on 1,000 milligrams of sustained release vitamin C 3 times a day for 14 days. And then they put them through the social stress test. You just love to know about the social stress test too. And those who were supplemented with vitamin C, had a decreased blood pressure response. They had better cortisol recovery and lower subjective stress. They felt they handled stress better. Well, we'll get to why all that's important. 20. The highest concentration of vitamin C is in the Brain was second. Well, trick question, wasn't it? Adrenal glands has the highest. Well, why is that important? Well, the adrenal glands help us handle stress. So here we go, back to the stress thing. Cortisol is released by the adrenal glands as the primary stress hormone. When you're under stress a lot, those adrenal glands get called on a lot. And guess what? If you don't have enough vitamin C to support them, things start to kind of wind down after a while. And what happens if things don't wind down and cortisol production just keeps on clicking? Well, you get elevated blood sugar. That's hyperglycemia. You get increased insulin and insulin resistance. You get excess fat storage, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and inflammation. And if that didn't make you depressed, you get depression. That's with too much cortisol production going on. So those adrenal glands that are helping us regulate cortisol need to be supported. And where is vitamin C concentrated the most? In those adrenal glands. Okay, other things vitamin C is doing. You know, you thought it was just a good antiviral and a good antihistamine and good for the immune system. It's just doing all sorts of things. Low levels of vitamin C are found in the cerebral spinal fluid of patients with neurological disorders. We know that vitamin C is involved with the synthesis of dopamine. So when you're trying to make dopamine from the amino acid tyrosine, you need vitamin C. Remember, these nutrients work as a team. You just can't do without any single one of them. Vitamin C is released by neurons as part of this glutamate uptake process. Well, why is that important? Well, that's one of the major excitatory neurotransmitters important in learning and memory. Now, vitamin C is water soluble, so that means you have to have it every day. There's some fat soluble vitamins that you store just a little bit up, but your B vitamins, your vitamin C, you have to replenish. They don't stick around. They're water soluble. Now, this was an interesting study. It was done in 1971, and I'll be really honest with you, I don't think they could do it today. Because they created experimental scurvy in their so-called volunteers that were just depleted of vitamin C, and they watched what symptoms first appeared because they were interested in behavioral effects. Well, the first thing that appeared as the vitamin C began to drop was what they called the neurotic triad of personality changes. Now, what's interesting about this, again, this is 1971. This is so Freudian. The neurotic triad is hypochondriasis. In other words, these people complain that they felt bad. Depression and hysteria. Now, doesn't that sound Freudian? But that is part of what they call vitamin C deficiency, is this neurotic triad. You'll notice depression was mentioned in there. Okay, now as the vitamin C levels continue to decline, these people flat just lost coordination. And that is something that they saw in the scurvy victims of the ships long ago, when the fellows had to make those long sailing voyages around the south of Africa, and nobody had any fresh vegetables. The trip, pretty soon they were all getting scurvy, and people, I mean, literally they died. But one of the last symptoms before that is they just can't walk. So the muscles give out. And these people, fortunately, I guess they didn't get to that point. They were just doing simple dexterity tasks. Okay, well, let's go to the fat head. Question 21. The blank is the fattest organ of the body and requires fat-soluble vitamins to protect the cell membranes. So what's the fattest organ in the body? Yep, the fat head. Okay. So you might need some fat-soluble vitamins to help protect those membranes. Okay, fat-soluble, that'll give you some clues. A and E. Yeah, our membranes have a lot of fats in them, and these fats are mostly polyunsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated fats go oxidized quickly, and your antioxidants A, C, and E, big fat soluble, are in those membranes helping to prevent that fat oxidation. All right, question 22, the what fatty acids that we call EPA and DHA for short, and I'm not pronouncing their long names, are the most abundant of the essential lipids, that means the necessary fats, in the membranes of the brain. What are those fatty acids called? It's got a number in it.
Omega-3.
Yes, omega-3. Those are your fish oils. Those omega-3s provide the EPA and DHA. And half our brain is made up of those two omega-3 fats. That's how important it is. They use high doses of those omega-3 fats to help in bipolar. Okay, now, do you think that the fats that you eat end up in the nerve cell membranes? Trick question? Nope, it's not a trick question, because yes, the fats you eat are what is in your brain, your cell membranes. So when you eat partially hydrogenated trans fats, that's what gets in your cell membranes, and then your cell membranes are so stiff they can't talk to each other. And that's why these polyunsaturates that are very limber are very important in your cell membranes. So when you eat fat, it's not just for calories. It's got other and very important functions. And they have found that folks who have major depression have very low levels of those omega-3 fatty acids, and they also found that they often have a high ratio of the omega-6 to the omega-3, and that means they have an inflammatory profile. Too much omega-6 fatty acids and too little omega-3s. And oddly enough, no surprise there, they had an increased inflammatory response. So one of the things that these omega-3s do, besides occupy a lot of space up here, is they reduce the production of all those inflammatory proteins we call cytokines, and very important for nerves talking to each other, nerve transmission. Okay, now, y'all are such a on top of things. We already said that cholesterol was necessary. You probably don't hear that very often. You often hear lower is better, but as cholesterol levels go down, the incidence of cancer and depression and other mental health problems goes up. And why? Well, cholesterol is one of those fat things that's in your cell membranes, and it also affects neurotransmitters. So somebody took an interesting study. They observed that there were low levels found in this particular study was men. Those who had low serotonin levels also had low serum concentrations of cholesterol. Now, serotonin is the neurotransmitter that people are prescribed those serotonin reuptake inhibitor antidepressants to preserve. So serotonin is one of the things that helps level out your mood. You need it. Another group took 20 healthy men and gave them some depression quizzes before and after they put them on a cholesterol-lowering drug, that particular one. And sure enough, the lower their cholesterol went, the more depressed they were. Okay, so dieting and depression. What happens when you're dieting? You're not getting enough nutrients. The amino acid, blank, is necessary to make the neurotransmitter serotonin. It's called tryptophan. And the L in front of it is just the proper biochemical nomenclature. Nobody's going to sell you R-tryptophan because it's physiologically inactive. So all your amino acids that are essential for the body have a big L in front of them, and that has to do with rotation, meaning left. Chronic dieters exhibit increased irritability, and I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this, and negative emotions, more so than what we call unrestrained eaters. That is, people who are allowed to just eat, not have to be thinking about what they're not eating. And they found that lower levels of tryptophan in dieters leads to binge eating and carbohydrate craving, which kind of goes together. And it can perhaps lead, obviously, to lower levels of serotonin because you don't have enough tryptophan to make your serotonin. And you're not going to have enough B6, and you're not going to have enough zinc, all those things that are important to make serotonin. So let's think about serotonin in a minute. 25. Most of the neurotransmitter serotonin is produced in the gastrointestinal tract. True or false? The second brain. Those darn intestines. You actually have specialized serotonin-releasing cells in your digestive tract. So one of my favorite sayings, besides a dark green leafy vegetable a day keeps the doctor away, is wherever the gut goes, the rest of the body goes. So what's one of the things that's really helpful in keeping your gut happy and healthy? Probiotics. Yes, probiotics. Specialized bacteria that are healthy, that nourish all those cells in the digestive tract are called probiotics. And there's many of those helpful bacteria. They just lump them all in the term called probiotics. Okay, mood and food. Depressed people report craving carbohydrates and increasing their consumption of sweets because they feel better. In a British study, they asked people if food affected their mood. How many of them thought that mood affected their food? Take a guess. It's more than 10%. I've used that twice. Actually, it was 80%. Okay, I gave one away here. In this study, what did they consider food stressors? Well, sugar. Y'all would have all gotten that anyway. What about alcohol? Yep. What about fruit? No. Nope. Just sugar and alcohol. Fruit, if you eat the fruit, you get protein in your and fiber, and it doesn't make your blood sugar rock and roll. But simple sugars do, all those sweets. And the brain actually needs some carbohydrates, but eating a lot of sweets, like I said, is simple sugar, and that gets those mood swings going. And I just want to kind of point out this one right here. Alcohol is a simple sugar, and it's a depressant. And it can slow the neurotransmitters, and it disrupts good sleep, that REM sleep that's necessary for serotonin production. So that's why having a glass of wine before you go to bed is not necessarily the best thing. Okay, well, insulin resistance, if you have good glucose tolerance, your blood sugar's not going all over the place, that actually, scientists have shown, actually improves your thinking. And therefore, eating low glycemic foods, those ones that don't make your blood sugar go up and keep it nice and steady, help with your mood stability. So, 28, which of the following are low glycemic foods? What about cornflakes? Nope. How about carrots? Carrots are okay, thank you. This is an astute audience. What about beans? Like your legumes, your pintos, your beans are excellent. Yeah. How about almonds? Nuts? Yeah, not much carbohydrate there. Yogurt. Now, we're not talking about the stuff with 7 teaspoons of sugar in it. We're talking about plain yogurt. What do you think? Yeah, got a lot of potassium in yogurt, too. Plums. Yeah. How about if you have something that's really grainy, not like a cornflake, like a whole grain rye cracker, like those Ryvita they sell upstairs? Yeah, that's pretty dense, got lots of fiber. Orange juice, what do you think? Orange juice is a high glycemic food. If you eat the orange, you're okay, but if you drink the juice, your blood sugar is going to fly up. So refined things, if it's processed, it's likely to not be a good choice because it's going to make that blood sugar fly up. Okay, so just watch what you eat. Avoid excess alcohol, caffeine, and sugar. You don't want overstimulation of your insulin. Drink lots of water. When you're feeling tired, the first thing you need to think of is actually drinking a glass of water. Eat regularly so you avoid your low blood sugar. And I just want to mention you get better digestion, keeping your gut happy, if you eat in a calm environment. And don't forget to chew your food, because it's very hard to get your nutrients out of your food if it's going through intact. And, think in terms of trying to be good most of the time. 80% of the time, plan ahead so that you can have nutritious snacks on board and low glycemic choices. So when you think you need sweets, you've got something that's like fruit on board, or some nuts, so that you're not going for the candy bars, etc. Okay, just a quick review here of how you get nutrients from your diet. We talked a lot about vitamin C, cantaloupe, broccoli, green peppers, obviously all those citrus like the grapefruit and oranges, strawberries, mango, a lot of tropical. Papaya is good too. B1, okay, not all vitamins are from your dark green leafies, but the best source of B1, interestingly enough, is pork, but you get a lot in sunflower seeds and beans. B12, mentioned that if you don't eat any kind of meat source or animal products, you don't get B12 because that's from meat, fish, eggs, and poultry, and dairy. B6, beans, bananas, potatoes, fish. Magnesium, seeds, cocoa, wheat and oat bran, not the white stuff, but the fibery stuff that they rip out of those grains when they make white flour and instant oats. Almonds, spinach, beans, zinc, there's your oysters, beef, beans again, dark green leafies, wheat germ, and selenium. Okay, Brazil nuts. 7 Brazil nuts is 14 times the RDA of selenium. So it's just, nature put a lot of selenium in Brazil nuts. You also get some from organ meats and seafood. Okay, those important omega-3s for the fat head. That's the oily fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, but also cold water trout have a lot of it in their muscle. Amino acids, those are from all your proteins like your poultry, your meat, your fish, your eggs, your dairy, and beans are a good source, especially soy. And vitamin D is from our sun, only in the summer around here, and you get a little in fish. Vitamin A, if it's actual vitamin A, is from liver. If it's beta-carotene, that's the water-soluble pigment that makes sweet potatoes look nice and orange. You get it from like your sweet potatoes and carrots and green vegetables, dark green leafies. And vitamin E is fat-soluble, so you get it from things like wheat germ, nuts and seeds, and like your vegetable oils. Now, that is if your vegetable oils haven't been highly processed and heat extracted, which destroys the vitamin E. So a lot of Americans don't get enough vitamin E in their foods. And if you don't feel like you're getting enough nutrients in your foods, you may have to consider supplementation. And when you consider supplementation, think about a good product. It's a little bit like airplane parts. You don't want to go cheap. So look for good manufacturers. I know the folks upstairs keep tabs on all the manufacturers, hold their feet to the fire. You want to make sure you have good manufacturers, and you can look at the recommendations on their products, and they usually have the appropriate amount of those nutrients to take. Now, before we get off diet, let's just talk a little bit about how important it is to relax and get that cortisol to settle down. You know, we've already provided the adrenal gland with all that vitamin C. Now we need to help everything just sort of dampen down, and that is help ourselves relax. Doing pleasurable things, whether you consider it hobbies, pets, gardening, doing things like literally stopping and taking a deep breath when you're feeling anxious or tired. Any kind of like meditation or prayer, or just helping your body forget what is causing you to be stressed. Laugh more. Laughter really is the best medicine. And I call it water therapy, taking a bath with Epsom salts. What do Epsom salts have in them? Magnesium. That's all they are, actually, is magnesium sulfate. You absorb a little of that, help you make neurotransmitters, relax those muscles. Essential oils can be helpful. Getting social support when you're feeling down is has proven to be very helpful. You know, getting out and exercising helps mental health. Enjoying whatever it is you want to do, dancing or moving to music, going for a walk, or going for a walk in nature, and you got a double good thing there. So I thank you for coming, and remember, the glass is half full. All right, we have time for questions. So if you can hold up your hand, there's microphones coming around. We record questions for all those who might want to listen later. I have so many questions, y'all are questioned out.
I have a question about selenium, and and it says seafood, and you listed also oysters. Other shellfish as well? How about shrimp and that kind of thing, or not?
Not as good. That falls way down on the list.
Okay.
I mean, by far, that darn Brazil nut just shines when it comes to selenium. And I found out, we were sorting them out of our mixed nuts, and I thought my husband was feeding them to the birds and squirrels. Well, it turns out when he makes smoothies, you know, yogurt and fruit, he throws them all in there. So I don't know how much selenium I'm getting, because all the Brazil nuts end up in our smoothies, but I ought to glow.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a brain injury. My frontal lobe was damaged, which is irreparable. Do I need more vitamin C? I mean, would that...
I would say everything. You know, everything we mentioned is going to be important, because remember, the nutrients work as a team. You need those fatty acids, you need vitamin C, B vitamins.
Well, is there anything that I need more of because part of my brain is injured?
Well, that's where the beauty of measuring it would help you.
Yeah, I don't know
determine that.
levels of anything, you know,
Yeah.
vitamin C, B12, whatever.
Well, I tell you, you might take a look at that Health Hunter Beat the Odds thing that's there. We actually have a brain panel on there that takes a look at those nutrients that are particularly helpful for, you know, keeping the brain healthy. And so what you do is you find out what's important for you, because it'll be different. And you know, tell you the truth, I doubt if they're looking a lot at nutrients and brain injury. I mean, I haven't read a lot of papers on that, but everything we say here that supports brain health is going to support the brain in its recovery. Yeah? Thank you. You're welcome.
Hello. I have a problem with being sleepy, really being very sleepy all the time, even after a good night's sleep and all. So I just wonder, does that mean I'm getting too much of some particular thing, or?
I doubt if you're getting too much of anything unless it's sugar, but
Not getting a lot of sugar.
not getting a lot of sugar. Well, when you're fatigued, you have to, first of all, you always think about hydration, and also remember that vitamin C, low vitamin C was associated with fatigue. And then you have things like your energy molecules like CoQ10. So again, for you, there may be something particular in there that's just not quite in alignment. You're not hitting on all 8 cylinders. There's the blue there.
I know you mentioned omega-3 and 6, and in my reading I come up with 9. So how does that add in or subtract or whatever?
Omega-9 is the monounsaturated fatty acids. And that's when you hear people talk about the Mediterranean diet. One of the healthy things about the Mediterranean diet is there's a lot of monounsaturated fats in olive oil. You also get monounsaturated fats in your nuts, and things like avocados. They're not the same as the omega-3s. Those are really your big guns, since there's so much of it up here. Yeah. Up here. Well, okay.
What is scurvy, and where does it start?
What is scurvy?
Yes.
And what is what?
Where does it start, or what is scurvy?
Scurvy is a very severe deficiency of vitamin C. That's what
Do you have sores or?
yes. You have all those things like bruising, you don't heal well, you have depression, you have weakness, you can't, poor coordination. Now, the thing you want to find out is what your level of vitamin C is. Scurvy is considered so extreme, they think that it doesn't exist, but it still does. You know, people just aren't eating their fruits and vegetables.
I have read an article in Nutrition Action magazine. It mentioned quercetin. Do you know anything about that? It's supposed to boost the mitochondria and the utilization of energy.
Yeah, quercetin is one of those things you get from foods, or it's a phytonutrient, and they sell it in refined amounts, so you can take it in capsule form, and it's good for inflammation. Yeah, it's just like, again, the teamwork approach to nutrients. You eat your foods to help you get a lot of these things, and then, you know, when you're not sure you can really get up to scratch with all your foods, you look for ways to additionally supplement. Yeah.
Okay,
Is there
I think we
another
have
question?
Time for one more question here.
Okay.
Does all omega-3 supplements contain the EFH and the DHA?
Oh, the EPA and the DHA?
Yeah,
Okay.
they all do, because sometimes in the bottles it'll say omega-3 and it'll have EPA, but it won't list the DHA on there. And then sometimes you'll see it where it says EPA and DHA.
Yeah.
So does all omega-3s have both of them?
Well, the fish has it all. What ends up in your supplement is quite variable, because it's important to actually look on the back of your fish oil supplement to see how much EPA and DHA are in there, because they'll all say they have 1,000 milligrams of fish oil. Well, that's just the amount of fish oil they've got in the capsule. How much EPA and DHA are in that capsule is something entirely different. And just your generic ones that you get at the big box stores will be about 300 milligrams. If you take a more high quality product, you can get 500 milligrams and up. But if they're manipulating those fish oils, which they can do them, they can make them more concentrated. I guess they could deplete them of DHA. I mean, you really want both. DHA is very important in learning. They put it in, infant formulas.
The preceding program was presented by the Center for the Improvement of Human Functioning International in the Bright Spot for Health Lunch and Lecture Series. To inquire about additional health-related information available on DVD, audio CD, VHS, or audio cassette, simply call 316-682-3100 or drop by 3100 North Hillside in Wichita, Kansas. To discover more about the Center and what we have to offer, be sure and visit us on the web at www.brightspot.org.